Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to bring this presentation to you, and we're going to do this a little bit differently today in the sense that normally this would be done in one full session, but we're going to split this up because we think it's really important for you to be able to get the tools and understand how to use them as we're moving through this. My name is Elisa Joseph, and I am Vice President, Director of Programs for the U.S. Black Chambers, and I want to welcome you to Chase's Advancing Black Entrepreneurs, Navigating Your Cash Flow. With us today, my trusty colleague and partner, Nicole Provost from Chase. She is a senior business consultant for Chase in the Bay Area, and has just been a wonder and a marvel in terms of the depth and breadth of information that she brings to this process and everything that she does. And so I'm excited to have her with us today, and I know that you're going to learn a lot from her. Just want to give you just a little bit of her background. She, as a senior business consultant for Chase for Business, covering Northern California, she's intentional on accelerating small business growth with a focus on minority, women, and veterans. Since joining the firm in 2010, Nicole has led a variety of roles, including marketing, finance, and corporate responsibility. She has also been a significant partner in implementing local initiatives, including Entrepreneurs of Color Fund, launching the Fellowship Initiative in Oakland, and expanding the firm's $75 million philanthropic commitment to the Bay Area. And so, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I am excited to share all of the knowledge that I have with everyone. And I hope this is going to be a fruitful discussion and conversation today.
Well, I know that it will because you're with us. And I know everyone here who's on the call are going to be great participants in here. We encourage you to share questions. We will stop in between to ask if you have a question. We will spend time answering those. So we expect this to be a really, really fruitful exchange today. So one of the things that's really important, the reason why we wanted to present the session in the way that we are is because the cash flow conversation is really critical in helping businesses understand how their company is making money, which is most important, how best to increase revenue and minimize expenses, and the way to a lender's heart when discussing a financing need, because we got to be able to speak their language. So Nicole, we're going to move through this presentation, the beginning part of it, and if you don't mind, I'm going to bring you in at a particular section, but I want to give people a background about the Chase Advancing Black Entrepreneurs program, and we'll get started, if that's okay with you.
That's wonderful. Let's get started.
Terrific. And so Advancing Black Entrepreneurs provides information, advice, tools, and resources to Black entrepreneurs, and we are part of a partnership of 3 other entities that include the National Urban League, Black Enterprise, and the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council. So we're excited to be partnering. This is about 18 months now that we've been delivering this program, and it just really gets better and better. And we're really excited to have senior business consultants like Nicole join us to be able to really help you understand Chase's focus, but really dig deep and give you the depth and breadth of information, as well as guidance to help you expand and grow your business. As we work through this, and we're going to move to the next slide, just to give you a really important focus is understanding, as we started out, that cash flow is the fuel that keeps your business running smoothly. Cash is king, as we always say. And if you don't have cash or understand how to keep track of it, how to monitor it, how to reduce expenses so that you have more, all of that at the end of the day increases your bottom line and increases your net profit. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. Next slide. Your success depends on making sure your cash is there when you need it. And so as we talk through these tools and strategies today, it's really going to help you get a really good handle on any day of the week as to the position that you stand with the cash in your business. Next. So we want to do a quick little survey. We always try to get a baseline of where you are before we start this conversation. And we'll do another baseline at part 2, which will take place in September, on how you feel that you've grown over this time. And so one of the things I'd love for you all to do is just give us your answers in this poll regarding how confident you are in your financials. Please don't be shy.
Please share, please share. And it's okay, even if you're at a 1, like, I think you're in the right place. If that's where you're at now, I think this is the right place to be, so we can really remove that barrier of information, just really that pathway to get you to a place where the cash is working for your business. So if you're at a 1, please don't be shy to share it. That's okay too. And if you're at a 5, that's good also.
Because you can share some insights as well.
Yes.
So we're going to give it another minute, and then we will move on.
And I typically find as we host the polls that we have a lot of business owners or just partners in general that really sit in the middle, that sit at that 3 point as well. So
we're going to say that everybody's a 3 right now, Nicole. How's that work for you?
Everybody's a 3. That's good. That means
Everybody's
we got room to go up.
Absolutely. And so, oh, look at this. Okay, so we got some great results. Okay, so we've got folks that are very worried. We understand that we are still in a pandemonium, and so although things have really opened up, we all know how precarious the situation can be from day to day. So we definitely understand that. For those of you a little concerned, we're hoping that as we move through this, that concern will lessen and you'll be a lot more confident in what you're doing. Not sure, that's really a good place to be too, because sometimes we don't talk about concepts like this, or ways to be able to help businesses really understand, their cash position from time to time. And a lot of what we're talking about too is bank speak to some degree, right? This is an area that banks really focus on when they're trying to determine whether or not they can lend to you. And so this is why we're taking time today to make sure that you understand what that is, but also that you know where you stand with your cash, because maybe you want to go out and buy another business. Maybe you want to invest in some real estate. It gives you that opportunity to know where you stand at any moment. And optimistic. We love to hear that people are optimistic. So thank you so much for that. I think opportunity, as we talk through this, we're going to try to identify areas of opportunity for you as well that can help you increase your cash position. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And so as we move forward, here's what we're going to cover today. As I mentioned, we're really going to focus on 2 basic areas. The first is cash flow basics, and the second is maximizing cash in. So we're going to just take those 2 today. We're going to dig deep on those. We're going to do the other 2 in September. So we hope that you join us for that. All of that information, however, is in your participant workbook. And so we hope that you'll be able to join us, for part 2, but also follow along in this work. So let's get started. Okay, so here's a great statistic. 50% of small businesses are operating with fewer than 15 cash buffer days. Nicole, you want to talk a little bit about what that means when we talk about cash buffers?
Absolutely. And then before I get a little bit into the cash buffer, I also want to just set the groundwork when we talk about cash flow, what that really means and how we're defining cash flow. So we're really defining cash flow as the movement of money in and out of your business. As we really think about us as individuals, we all have a relationship with money, right? But what is your business's relationship to money as well? And we're talking about as soon as those dollars either hit your hand, hit your account, when you make that first purchase, that first sale for your business, we are really looking at the continuum of cash from beginning to end. So when we talk about cash flow, it encompasses all of that, although today's session is going to be focused on really the inflows. So when we even go a step further, we think about the cash buffer. Really, cash buffer means if your business were to stop having any type of sales, any type of revenue coming in, how much cash do you have on hand to still sustain and pay all of your overhead costs without closing down the business. And so we see this really represented at 50%, meaning half businesses really have about 15 days of cash buffer. So that is not a huge buffer when you think about some of the things we've experienced really in the environment already through a pandemic. Having to pivot could take longer than 15 days in itself. So really that cash buffer is really, how long do you have? What does your security blanket look like when it comes to cash on hand to still operate if there was any unfortunate circumstances for the business?
Thank you so much for that. And so as we move to the next slide, really, Nicole, what you've really highlighted is this shelter from the storm concept, right? How you have the confidence with the more cash buffer days you have, to be able to not worry about overdue bills, not worry about payroll, right? Not worry about, can I get that piece of equipment in? All those things are really, really critical in having that cash flow shelter.
And I'll also just add, when we think about just sheltering from the storm, there are so many unforeseen things that could happen with the business. If you don't have 15 days of cash buffer, I want to also say that that's okay. You can still build that. It doesn't mean that you have to build everything. We typically recommend 3 to 6 months, and it doesn't have to be built overnight. Just like the progress that happens on the personal side, when it comes to financial health on the business side, you can build that up so that you can get to a place of 6 month buffer.
That sounds great. And so in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the types of cash flows, inflows and outflows, and what they mean. There is operating cash, there's investing cash, and there is financing cash. And they all have different purposes. Nicole, do you want to just talk really briefly before we delve a little bit deeper into the cash inflows area and how it works?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we think about I'll focus on the cash inflow aspect because even the operating, investing, and financing is going to be the same when it comes to outflows. But when we think about the inflows, when we think about operating cash, that is really the sales that you're making from your business. I'll just use, a t-shirt business as an example. Once I make a sale, I charge, $10 for that t-shirt that comes into my account. So that's going to be a cash inflow from operation. So the money coming into the business is really operating the business on a day-to-day basis. Some of the other components when you think about operating inflows could just be if you are getting any type of, let's just say, residual checks from royalties, as an example, or maybe you have some other type of activity that is going on with operating the business. So that's going to be coming into the business. When we think about investing, so let's just say, you're getting some residuals from some investments that you have, regardless of where you invest that. It can be from investment stocks, bonds, other type of investment activities that you're trying to reinvest into the business. So you may get some profit from that, and that will be an inflow into the business. So that's really where we see some of the investment activity. And then when we talk about inflows from financing, so that could be maybe you just got a loan. Maybe you just applied for that loan, and now that loan that you did get and you received is actually hitting your account. That's going to be an inflow for the business. Maybe it is, in an equity, maybe it's in a grant, and debt, it doesn't matter. But the financing aspect is really the inflow that you're going to see from some type of financing for the business, which is going to be separate from operating versus investing. I think this is important, though, really to kind of understand the difference, because the operating is really going to be something that fluctuates. So you're going to see a lot of movement when it comes to operating, whether you have a seasonal business. Maybe you're going to have some high inflows during certain parts of the year versus low during other parts. But the financing, you'll probably see big income, big amounts incoming, and then maybe nothing for a little while when it comes to financing as well. So there's going to be a different, I would say, seasonality when it comes to the different inflows of operating, investing, and financing.
And Nicole, thank you so much for keeping it in layperson's terms, because
Yes,
this can this can get pretty heady. If you all don't know, bankers do speak in bank speak, and we use a lot of acronyms and things like that. So I really do appreciate you breaking it down. When we start to talk about this, and we're going to have you ask some questions before we really delve a little bit deeper into this. But as you look at these three different types, all of this is, ways that money flows into your business, right? At the end of the day, and they just come from different sources. A lot of times, we've always talked about this concept of additional revenue, right? This sort of idea of some might be passive and some might be, a little bit more active than others, and this concept is sort of working in the same way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So let's move forward. I want to take questions first. We're going to talk about this business tool. So we're going to keep this on the screen for a little bit because we're going to spend a little bit time on that. But I want to, before we move forward, want to make sure that where we are right now, that you all have an understanding of these initial concepts before we delve any deeper. And we're here to take any questions that you have. So if you want to put them in the chat, the team will share them with us, and we will do our best to answer them.
And please don't be shy. Share any questions that you have throughout. We want to make sure that we capture that moment and that question that you may have as we share this information, and it doesn't, get lost as we move further along in the presentation. So please, please, please share.
And we've talked about a lot right now, so I want to take this time to really slow it down and give you all an opportunity to ask a question in Q&A.
And as we are kind of formulating those questions for our business, I would also say just think about those different activities when it comes to the cash inflow. Are you seeing a lot of operating inflow when it comes to your business? What does that look like right now for you? Have you seen a lot of changes, over the course of the last 2 years, if you have your business longer than 2 years established? If it comes to the financing activities, have you seen a lot of changes in that area? Do you feel like you're lacking in that area? Do you have questions on what you can do to really strengthen some of those particular areas of the business? But I would definitely say you're going to see a lot more in the operating activities. That's where all the magic happens on the day-to-day in and outs of the business.
Absolutely. And that's really where I think we're going to focus a lot of our time today as we look at this tool. So we're not going to open the tool just yet. What we are going to do is go through just a couple of concepts. And then what we would like to do is open the tool so you can sort of see it firsthand. I think, Nicole, you wanted people to sort of play along, right? How do you want them to do that?
Yes, absolutely. So we want to make sure that we're going to open up the tool in a couple of minutes. We want to make sure that you also, if you can, open up the tool on your end. So if you're on your phone, your cell phone, your laptop, your iPad, wherever you are, we're going to open up this tool and we're going to actually walk through a live example. The first thing that comes to mind for me is a marketing business because she had some cash flow challenges. So we're going to really center our example around that type of business. But I also want you to go along with this. So as we put in some of the operating activities, the inflows, as we talk through that, I want you to really think about your actual business and what's occurring with you at this moment and input that information into the tool. And the one thing is that even if you don't do everything right now with us today, whenever the Zoom or the webinar has concluded, at least you'll still have that tab open like we all do. We have a million tabs open, but you'll still have that tab open on your device so that you can always go back to it.
Absolutely. And I've put the tool in the chat, but we do have a couple questions. So let's get to those. So Nicole, when creating the budget, should the reserves be a line item so that it can be built in the operations? What would you recommend?
Yes. So when we actually open up the tool, there's actually going to be a specific place to put in where the reserves, what cash on hand you have. So you'll be able to add that in. Let's just say it's 10,000, so that it'll really give you that analysis of inflow and outflow and what the actual buffer is. So when you're thinking about the tool related way, there's a place in the tool for you to add that cash buffer. If you're talking about separately outside of the tool and you're creating a budget, you want to make sure that you have that cash buffer as the starting place. I wouldn't necessarily put it as an inflow because that's not necessarily cash coming in. That's what you've already started with. So it's going to be your starting place for the business when creating a budget outside of the analysis tool.
Great, thank you so much. So let's get started. We're not going to go to the tool first. We're going to run through the concepts a little bit, and then we're going to go back and jump into the tool itself. So if we can go to the next slide. Are we able to blow that up at all? We might be able to. And so what you're looking at right now is really a chart that helps you track what your inflows were for the past year, right? So we're going to take this opportunity to think about, what did your business do last year? What kind of products did you sell? What other kinds of services did you provide? How does that all link into the inflows for your business, right? And so this particular, and just give me a minute because I want to just bring it up myself. This particular slide really provides an overview of what inflows look like. And so just some really key points before we jump into the tool itself. The tool itself provides you with drop-down menus so that you can add different goals, different types of inflows across operating, investing, and financing that Nicole spoke of. It lets you describe the inflows in your own words. So one of the things that we're trying to do today is to make this as layman friendly and user friendly as possible, and give you examples that help you connect to this work and help you be able to do this on your own. And so you can set the frequency around how money is coming in. You can also note when money is deposited as well. And then once you put all the information in, you can click add, and it will begin to sort of calculate all this information for you. So that's a little bit of what we're talking about relative to inflows. Let's talk a little bit about outflows as well. And the same thing, just so you all should see this in your workbooks as well. So if you turn to your workbook page, you should be able to see these slides pretty easily in terms of what they talk about. And so just as we talked about inflows, we're going to talk about outflows in the same way. Where did your money go? How did you spend your money? Right? What categories are you aligning it into across operations, investing, and financing? You know, when we think about the financing part, that's usually if you got a loan, you're making some payments back. Would that not be the case, Nicole, when we're talking about that area of outflows?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you're going to be making those payments back on those loans that you may have had, that you may have. It doesn't have to just be for Chase, but any loan. If it was the idle loan, whatever the case may be, that is going to be an outflow. And then also I see a question from Tamara Huff. Where can I find the workbook? I think.
Yep. So just give me a second. I can tell you exactly where it is. Give me a minute.
And why?
So if you go to page 12, I'm sorry, not page 12, one second. Starting on page, it's 14 of my book, so it's going to be, in your book, it's going to be, just a second. And I had them listed and I put it down. I'm gonna let Nicole keep talking. I'm just gonna bring it up real quick, and I'll give you those notes, guys. Go ahead, Nicole.
Perfect. I was gonna also mention, as we're talking about the inflows and outflows, one thing that I also recommend as we get into when we do open the tool is making sure that when you think about the inflows, this is actual funds typically that is going to be received in 30 days or less. So if you have a lot of accounts receivables where the payment that you're going to receive is a little far out, like make sure you document that down as accounts receivables so that you can really look at the trends that is happening for your business, because you haven't yet collected on those funds. And if you have I would say a large buildup of accounts receivables, and then you may have to think about changing some of your payment terms with your partners, your suppliers, your clients, and so forth. So really just differentiate that, those differences, so that you can actually see the trends and you're not just looking at a lot of bulk information in big lump sums. You want to be able to differentiate the activities out. That allows you to really move forward and make an actual decision on the business and how to pivot when it comes to cash flow.
Absolutely. So page 6 of your workbook shows you these two charts that we're talking about. And just so you all know, I'm navigating between your workbook and our participant guide as well, our facilitator's guide as well. But so if you look at those, page 6, you will see a chart that talks specifically about your inflows, a chart that talks about your outflows, and then on page 7, it shows you a summary. So what it does is, and that's what we're going to show you in this demonstration, what it does is it takes that input that you have and it basically calculates total inflows, total outflows. It does a graph for you. It does a pie chart for you. It really gives you a great sense of how your business as well as your cash is positioned to help you move forward.
And I'll also just share, no one wants to recreate a pie chart, like you're actually focused on running the business, and focusing on the craft that you have as a business owner. So I would definitely say leverage the tool, so that you don't have to recreate the wheel. It really spits out that information for you, making it a lot easier.
Absolutely. So Nicole, do you want us to kind of jump into the tool right now?
Absolutely. Let's jump into the tool. So I know, we added the actual link in the chat. So if you're able to go to the chat to open the link, if you're on your workbook, the link is also there, starting on page 5. So we're going to go ahead and open up that tool, and then we're going to use some examples from a business that I work with that has some cash flow challenges, but since have overcome them. So we're going to open up that tool, and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Can everyone see? Just give us a thumbs up if you can.
I believe it's still on your outflows screenshot.
Hold on 1 minute. Let me stop sharing for a second. I'm going to make my screen larger. Can we see it now?
Yes, we can.
Great. And so I am going to be the business owner inputting my information. Nicole is going to actually help me walk through this so that you all get a sense of how this works. And we'd love for you, if you have a screen open and you've used the link that we have in the chat, to follow along. So we're going to start with inflows first.
Perfect. And before we get started, Lisa, I did see one question in the chat saying, where's the link? I did scroll up on the chat. When you scroll up to the top, since we added it at the top of the hour, you'll see that link a little bit more further up in the chat. So if you're able to go up there, you'll be able to click on it and follow along on your device as well. So when we, thank you. So when we think about the categories, we're starting off with inflows. So we're going to go ahead and select that drop down for category. And we're going to really start with operating. So we're going to say the sale of a product, and we're going to do online. I know a lot of us have, pivoted really to, I would say, selling a lot of our products or services online in the pandemic, whether we chose to or we were forced to. And then for that description, I'm just going to put flyers in the description, because I'm talking about this marketing business that I work really close with. And she created a lot of the flyers for some events. So the product that she sold online, I would say the frequency, if we hit that drop down, we're going to just say it varies monthly. It's that third option, there. And so really the reason why I wanted to select this one is because the sales that you have, most likely as a business owner, is not the same every month. You're going to see some differences from January through June through December, and depending on your actual business. And so if we could just add really just 500 in those first months, January through May, and then we're gonna, tick it up there to about $1,000 to the end of the year. And the other thing I also want to mention is you do not have to put any commas or any periods. It will not, the tool won't work when you try and add that in there. It actually does all the work for you. So it allows you to just pop in those numbers and then really go to, that next month.
And
And
just
so
forgive me, I'm just trying to,
I know you're good.
I'm gonna edit a little bit. My machine's a little slow, guys.
Yep.
But I think you get a sense of what we're doing here.
Yep.
Here we
And
go.
so I would also say, what does sales look like for your business? Is it the same, throughout all the months? In most cases, it's not. So I would say add that information into the actual tool. Start to play with the inflows. And the other component of why we recommend really adding the variable is because when you see that there is a deficit maybe, or maybe there is some things you need to change, you're able to really identify month over month really where that activity starts. So if you notice like, oh, August and September is really tough, that activity that you need to increase that cash flow doesn't start in August or September. It needs to start before. So really, this allows you to identify those trends. And so for that business owner, throughout the rest of the month, it kind of went up from, August through the rest of the year. So we could put 1,000 in there so we could see that increase for that business. And then we'll go on to that next category as well. And so as we're adding this information into the actual, tool, I would love to just ask for some of you, where do you see most of your sales for your business? Does it come during a certain month, throughout the year? Is it the same? And you can add that in the chat. I'm looking at the chat here myself. So we could save that, that first one. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add one more category.
Okay.
So if we want to do one more drop down of inflows, and then we're going to do the sales of we can still do sales of product online, or you can do service. Yeah, either way. And then what we're going to do for this one is podcasts. So this, sales and marketing firm, there is some variable ones, but then they also have something that is, pretty consistent because it's a podcast. So the podcast happened, on a monthly basis throughout all months. So it's going to be fixed. And then we're going to just do the podcast revenue as $300. And then I see Ida who added in the chat. Thank you, Ida. It's seasonal. So that's the importance of making sure that you add some of the variable. If it is seasonal, you're really able to see if you have that cash buffer, for your inflows and your outflows. All right, so we'll stop there. We'll just do that. So any questions on just adding some of the inflows into the tool? So like we kind of shared, it gives you a lot of options. You could do the frequency, monthly, fixed, variable. It could be annual. If you have a business where you actually have contracts and that contract is set for the next year, you want to add that information in there. But I would just say add all of your operating activities when it comes to the inflow of your business in this tool. If you leave something out, then you could be making a decision based on the wrong information. So add everything that you do know and that you do have, really to put the control in your hands as a business owner.
We're going to move a little bit forward. I'm going to show you just continue to outflows. You would do the same thing that we just did with the inflows. And then I'm going to see if there's an example in here that kind of gives you a sense of how all of this looks at the end of the day. And then you all saw the in your workbook, you saw sort of the outcome of what all that would look like. So just wanted to give you all a sense of that. It's typically a homework item in your workbook, but I really wanted you to get the feel of what it looks like, the feel of you being able to do that. So when you're by yourself, you don't have any fear about doing this work. You're really confident about how you input your information. And as you can see, it's really, really easy. You really can't mess up. You just kind of put stuff in, and you can continue to change it to all different kinds of scenarios.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if we're able to just go forward, Elisa, just so that we can show them there's a place for them to add their cash buffer as well. If you want to just continue to compare, that's okay.
Sure.
And then right there is perfect. So there's if you scroll back to the top a little bit, there's a
Mhm.
little section there that says,
Oh, right.
what is the amount of cash on hand that you have to start with at the beginning of the year? So we want to make sure that you also add that number in there, because that's going to give you that comparative data on that chart. So
And
if
what
you
number do we want to add, Nicole?
yeah. So we can add 10,000 in there. So that's
Okay.
what yes. So 10,000. So we didn't add the outflows because we're going to go over that during another session, but we wanted to just make sure that you have some of those important components. Make sure you add those inflows. And when you do get to the outflows, you add those as well, and make sure you add the cash on hand. So it really starts to show you what your entire year balance is and what that growth looks like, because we want to see that chart go up and up over months.
And if you notice, when I put this number in, we were here initially. And as soon as I put the number in, this whole bar raised up. So again, it does everything in real time for you, so you can get a sense of how it works.
And then the last thing I like to add is typically, what is the cadence when you're like, oh, okay, like this is a lot, adding the inflows, possibly adding the outflows and the buffer. We really recommend doing this maybe on a monthly basis. So the really utilizing this tool consistently really allows you to make those adjustments that you see month over month. And you're coming back and you're really using that data to hold yourself accountable as a business owner. How has it changed from the last time that you input it? Were there different things that pivoted with your business? And you may not always have time to stop and reflect, but this gives you the space to actually do that when you see the numbers on the chart.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, for that. We're going to move on to our next section. And we can go back to the PowerPoint. And let's move to, we've done results, so we can move from there. As I mentioned, you can do this on your own. So that's basically what your homework would be for this. And now we're going to talk about maximizing cash in. We talked about inflows, and as a result of those inflows, what that really means is that you've got money coming in from a number of different places. It could be from your online sales. It could be from your brick and mortar sales. It could be from advertising. If you're doing social media and you've put an ad out and people are responding to it. So it could be from a number of different sources, right? And so let's talk a little bit about maximizing cash in, because there are 4 ways to identify and make the most of your business opportunities. And really what that means is it's really about customer segmentation at the end of the day. Understanding who your customers are, what's the frequency of them visiting you, how often do they do business with you, and categorizing it from there. So in the next slide, it talks about understanding and knowing your competition. And we can move to the next slide on that. So this is a really key point, and Nicole, I'd love for you to talk about this, because again, having gone through these 2 years with COVID, now 2.5 years in this sort of post-COVID state, the competitive landscape has changed quite a bit. I was out driving around the other day, and there are a lot of businesses that don't have brick and mortars anymore. It doesn't mean that they've closed their business, but it might mean that they have just moved into their home to conduct business, or they might have gone to a smaller space. So I think it's really important to understand who's still around and who isn't, and how do you best address your competition to beat them and be successful.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to say is, when you think about your competitors and just the competitive landscape that you're operating in, how are you reaching your customers? What is that top way that your customers actually make a purchase for your product or for your service? So if that is online, Where is that coming from? Where are those sales coming from? And really, what are the trends that you're seeing? Are a lot of your purchases being made, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, just depending on the nature of your business, or is it earlier in the week? So just really understanding, what does that trend look like for you when it comes to the competitive landscape? And then also, where are your customers? Where are your customers at? Are they all online? Do you have customers in person? If you do have some brick and mortar, just really making sure you understand your business and how you reach the people that are going to actually make a purchase for you.
Absolutely. I know we talk a lot sometimes about competition, usually when we're working on a business plan, right? And then we don't kind of go any further after that. We don't think about really monitoring the landscape, so to speak. Can you share some thoughts on ways to find out how to figure out what's going on with your competition? Where do you go to look? How do you
Yeah.
get that information?
Absolutely. So listen, the first thing I want to say is that we are all online. Like that's understatement, right? So the first thing I always do is I look for other businesses that are similar to the businesses that I work with. So I will just do a Google search. I am looking at, other t-shirt companies that's in the Bay Area, because that's where I'm based at. And I want to see who comes up at the top of that list. I also want to start to do the things that we do as customers. You start to Yelp other businesses, see where they are, if they have an actual digital presence, so that you can start to find out more about your competitors in this space. The other thing I will also say is, when you're out and you're going to events, do you see your peers and your colleagues there that are in that same space as you? And if so, are you having those conversations with your competitors, and not in a way to be um, malicious or competitive in a bad way, but just having a conversation like, how are you operating business? How are you doing? How are you finding wins? How are you finding successes as well? I hear a little echo, so it might be someone who needs to mute. But I would just say, you have to find your competitors the same way your customers would find you. They're going to be searching online. They're going to be out and about. They're going to be asking friends and family. So those are really some of the same ways you have to find out about your competitors, so that you can find out the pricing. Are you really at the same price as your competitors? And if not, that's not necessarily a negative thing, but maybe you have some type of competitive advantage. Maybe you have something of higher value that you're actually reaching your customers with. So I would also say, even after you do find your competitors, find out, where their pricing point is. Is it close to yours, higher, lower? Where do you kind of sit in that spectrum? So the same way your customers find you is the same way you have to find your competitors.
We're going to run through the next few slides because I do want to share that worksheet, that Excel spreadsheet. And so on page 12 of your workbook, you will see this sort of what we call competitive landscape, so to speak. It gives you an idea of, if you see the darker blue dot in the middle, that is you. And then you can see where people are around you, of course, price, of course, a number of different variables. And those are important to understand, because what's great about being in the middle is that you attract people from either side, right? There are times where you want to be more upscale because you're looking for a certain kind of customer, right? There are times when you want to be the dollar store because you just want everybody coming in, right? And so it all depends on what your goals are in terms of driving revenue for your company. Next slide. And this is, again, just that same page. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So let's talk about segmentation, because that's what we're leading into. So move to that slide. So you want to know your customers, as Nicole said, so you can strategically build loyalty and also expand your base. We go to the next slide. The ways that we do that is, there's a worksheet that you can use on page 13 of your workbook itself that asks, who are your customers? And so we're going to give you a little bit of a tool to demonstrate that, but we're going to go through the types of customers that you might want to be thinking about so that we can demonstrate that tool a little bit more effectively. So here's your best customer, right? When they shop with you, they spend a whole lot of money, right? Who are they that they're falling into that category? What sales goals do you have? Can you set for them? And how do you reach them? Nicole, talk about the best customer side a little bit and what that means.
Yeah, so the best customer is really that most loyal customer that you know their name, you know they're coming back next month to get their regular dot dot dot. So this customer is someone that you know really well. You know, when I say their age, I mean in a general sense of your best customers. You know the demographics of the people that you are appealing to, and you're able to really stay connected to those customers. You're able to keep them a part of your business, and as you grow and as you change, those customers stay with you. So I want to say this is really your base. This is your core base, and this is where most of your revenue is generated from.
So Nicole, if we go back to that inflows chart that we just looked at,
Yeah.
would you be forecasting those folks? What buckets would you be forecasting the best customer in?
Yeah, so I would forecast the best customers really in that fixed
Mhm.
monthly bucket, because you know every month this a set of customers is really going to give you $500 in revenue each month. You know that that's always going to be there and that's going to be steady. So I would put that in the fixed bucket, but I will also say never get complacent, right? Because you never know how the landscape can change or how dynamics can change. But I would put that in the fixed bucket.
That sounds great. Let's move to the next customer. So here's a sustaining customer. They don't spend a lot, but they shop a lot, right? And they are loyal. They're always coming back to you. So what we want to think about is what types of people that you're serving fall into this category. How do you set your sales goals and how do you reach out to them? Any thoughts on that, Nicole?
Yeah, the first thought is really you want to turn the sustaining customer into the best customer. That's ultimately what the goal is. So you want to transform this customer base into that best customer base. And I would say typically this is someone who does come back frequently, but maybe they aren't spending a lot, but they're still invested in your business, and that's still a good customer to have because you know they are still valuing the product or service that you do offer. I would also say like this is probably a good place to ask for when I say feedback, like, hey, is there something else that you see I can really do better as a business owner? Is there something else that could really get you back so that you can purchase the bigger set, so that you can buy more, whatever that case may be? So I would say this is really that prime opportunity for feedback as they're purchasing, but not at the quantity that you might like them to.
That sounds great. What's our next customer look like? Let's see. The lookalike customer. So these are folks who they look like the customers we talked about, but
Mhm,
they're shopping someplace else, right?
mhm.
And so who are they? Why are they doing that? How do you get those customers? Is there a sales goal that you can set around them?
Yeah, so let me just add a really quick funny joke because I'm probably a lookalike customer, right? I'm the person that Trader Joe's think I should always go to, but I'm always at Whole Foods. So Trader Joe's is like, that's the lady we want right there. She's spending all the money at Whole Foods. But really the piece is, well, why is that? Is it due to location? Maybe it's not convenient. Is it just due to the price point? Maybe the price point is too high, or whatever the case is. So I would say that lookalike customer is the customer that you think ideally should be making the purchase at your business, but there is something that they are just not finding of value, and it could just be location. It could be price point. There's a number of factors, but I think you have to make sure that you do outreach to the lookalike customers because you never know when that next product or service that you actually roll out may be the one that's going to actually bring them into your business. So this is, I would say, I'm a lookalike customer. I'm supposed to be at Trader Joe's, but I'm at Whole Foods all the time. But that's just an analysis to give you,
Right.
from.
And does convenience and flexibility sort of fall into this category in particular when trying to woo these kinds of customers?
Absolutely. Convenience, flexibility, pricing, all of those components. It can even just be just knowledge as well. Like, do they know that you exist as a business and that you have some of the, products that they're looking for? Have you been able to reach them? What does your outreach look like? Have you did any type of, email campaign so that these customers that typically are spending, at Whole Foods could come to your actual business?
All right. And we have a final customer who's the aspirational customer. So this is the one that you know is going to take your business to the next level. Again, types of people fall into this category, goals, and how do you reach out to them? These are the areas where we're looking for sort of that big win. It could be a big contract, right? It could be an opportunity to connect or merge with someone else that's reaching that customer and you get the benefit of it. What's your thoughts about this particular customer and what should the thought process be to get to that next level?
Yeah, so the aspirational customer is really the one that you're setting a goal or strategy around because it's not something that you're able to meet with them in the marketplace at this moment. So this may be, a customer down the line that you're looking to obtain. So I would say really this is going to be more focused internally on the business and the product and service that you have. And do you think it's going to really appeal to that aspirational customer down the line? So you may not be able to reach them at this moment, but really I typically see the aspirational customer move, up the spectrum when there is a new product or a new service that rolls out. All of a sudden that customer is now interested in your business. So I would say you really have to be strong around your strategy and your focus. And that's how you're going to really reach that aspirational customer over time.
That sounds great. Let's go to the next slide. Just want to see exactly where we are. So in the chat, this is where I thought we were going to be. I want you to do two things. The first is whatever insights you discovered, let's share those. And if you have a question, put that in the chat as well. We want to continue to answer your questions as we move through this. We are getting to the end of the webinar, which is great. But we want to also share a tool with you as well. And we want to make the most of your time. So feel free to put information in the chat. Tell us what you've learned as part of these insights as they apply to your customers.
And as you're adding those answers into the chat, I just want to say the ultimate goal is really to move that aspirational customer, to that lookalike customer to the sustaining, and the sustaining to the best. Ultimately, you want to move all of your customers along the spectrum to where you have a larger base of best customers. That's going to increase significantly your cash inflow because you're going to be increasing your sales. Sorry, I just had to add that quick note in there.
Absolutely. And while we're doing that, I do want to see if I can pull up this tool. So just give me a minute. I think this is it. Nicole, are you seeing that?
No, it still is in the chat slide.
Okay, hold on 1 minute. Why am I in the chat slide?
I think sometimes you have to stop and then restart the share and it'll pop up right.
And here we go. How about that?
Oh yeah, that's perfect. That is
all right. Terrific. And I do see something in the chat. Is that a question? Oh, it's a statement though. I like it. Importance of carefully following cash inflow and output monthly. That is definitely a learning to take away from this. We appreciate that insight because that really, if you got that part, you are getting exactly where we're going with this work. So thank you for that. Before we go, I want to be able to just share this. So again, this is also in your workbook. It is an exercise, so you can use that link. Let me see. And the link actually turns into this spreadsheet. So I'm going to drop in the chat the link.
And while Elisa is dropping that chat in the link, I did see one other comment from Jamie. I learned the difference in identifying my customers, which is really helpful to further my business. Thank you so much, Jamie, for the comment. I appreciate it.
So this link that you see, chase.com/competitive analysis, brings you to, when you key that in, it's going to bring you to this spreadsheet. So feel free to again, follow along as we're doing this. But what I wanted to do is have Nicole outline, number one, what these areas are and how they align to what we just talked about in the competition space, particularly. And then how best to do that competitive analysis, because I think in order to think about who your customer is, you also need to know who your competitor is as well.
Absolutely. So with this spreadsheet, and I'll try and go through it relatively quickly. You want to first enter your business at the top. So there's a section that says your business, and Elisa has it as my favorite school, whatever school that is. And then the value features is what is the one thing that your business does that your customers really value. So if it is transportation included for lunch, provided. That's the one piece that your customers really hold on to and really value. That's why they're coming to your particular business. And then your value rating is kind of where do you sit? Are you at a 5, which is pretty average? That's in the middle, meaning you're not really high, not really low. So 5 is just the middle. And then what does that price point look like for you? Is that price point $600 is really what we're gonna say. And so that really sets the standard and the stage for where you sit as your business as you add your competitors so that you can start to see who's above, who's below, left or right. So as we get into your actual competitors down below, you're gonna add your competitor's name, open mind, home is here, early smiles, claps and smiles. This sounds like dental offices to me, but that's just my quick thought. So then you add those features. What are those one features that your competitors have, in comparison to what you do? And then you want to add that value rating. What do you see, that competitor as? Are they probably the same as you? If they're at 450, they're pretty close to the middle. And then you want to do that for all of your competitors. So once you add, let's just say your top 3 is typically what I recommend. We added more here just to give you a better visual of how all of your competitors will sit. But I would definitely say start with those top 3 competitors so you can see what that analysis looks like. This really allows you to really, I would say, obtain towards some of those customers that aren't your best customer. That's ultimately the goal, is to increase cash flow. And you do that by increasing your customer base, and your customer base are actually making a purchase. But to do that, you really have to know who your competitors are in the market. So this is a really good tool to start.
And then on page 13 of your workbook, who are your customers is the other tool. So if you take a look at that sheet of that workbook page, it will direct you to actually outlining for yourself who you identify as your customers, right? And give you really a good sense of how frequent they are visiting you. What do you believe those price points are? All of this, everything we're doing here is adding back into that inflow sheet. So when you're thinking about, exactly how you're driving revenue, where it's coming from, these 2 areas really help you define that better.
Yes. Yes. So start with those top three customers.
Absolutely.
That gets you to a place of knowledge. That gets you to a place of really understanding where you sit.
It absolutely does. So before we close, because we are going to have a second part 2 of this, so more to come about this, I do want to ask you, do you have any questions? Is there anything that was unclear to you as we move through this? I wanted to keep this in that hour time frame because I wanted to spend and go a little bit deeper into these concepts with you. So hopefully that worked for you, but would love to, as we're closing, get a few more comments, and then we'll share with you some of our upcoming activities. Any thoughts?
And while you're adding that in the chat, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to go a little bit deeper. We're really trying, I would say, a different model on how business owners don't just take in information through webinars and then walk away with all these different things in their head that they learned, but actually walk away with the tools. So even if you didn't use them in the moment with us, I hope that you now know that these tools are right there and available for you. And we're going to come back during part 2 and continue along this same line.
So I did see a question about registering again. I think that we did this as a part 1 and part 2 as part of the registration. So it's easy enough for us to just share that information with you, whether we do it via email or through Eventbrite. So stay tuned. We'll be forwarding you some more information. And then I see that I think there's a couple other questions. Just give me a minute. We want to make it simple for you. Also know that everything that we do, we record, as you can see, and it begins to live on YouTube. So we do additional watch parties around these events. We also promote these. So the whole purpose of this is not only for you to be here in the moment, but for you to also have a reference point after the event. So there's always an opportunity for you to go back and revisit these concepts, walk through what might have been where you thought you had it, and then there's sort of a little issues like, well, how do I do that? Walk back and go through those videos, and you'll be able to do that. I think there's one more message. Nicole, this is for you. Are there any books you recommend we read about the topic? Any podcasts, clubhouse rooms, love the stage? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I will say, my recommendation to you instead of a book is have a mentor. So if you do not have a mentor, we have senior business consultants across the country. I'm in the Bay Area, but I have colleagues and peers from LA to Atlanta to Chicago to New York, everywhere in between. The book that I do read is The Habits of Highly Effective People. So that's the one book. It's not related to cash flow, but
is that a Covey? Is that a Stephen Covey book?
It is. It is a Stephen Covey book. I read that probably 2 times and I love it. But outside of just that, like if you can have a mentor or someone in your corner that you could go to and actually ask these questions when it comes to cash flow specific to your business, I think that'll position you to succeed in the long run because they'll have the knowledge to give to you that's tailored to your situation. And it'll allow you to make an impact and make those changes in the moment. So please do that.
Right. The other thing I would recommend too, I think it really is important to keep up with current events. So, even if you pick up a newspaper, I know we don't do that anymore, but sometimes it's important, or subscribe to them online as I do, and just scan the business section locally as well as nationally, right? And even globally, because there's opportunities across the globe as well. But I think getting in the habit of spending maybe 15 to 30 minutes a day, maybe first thing in the morning or last thing at night, really kind of catching up is a good way for you to keep on top of it. And it kind of gets your mind going and gets you thinking about other opportunities and other ways of doing things. Same thing with podcasts. I usually try to find the one I like. That's giving you factual information. It's important to have factual information for this, because at the end of the day, numbers are numbers. We can try to, skew whatever it is that we want to as we relate to information, but the numbers are the numbers. They are absolutes. And so it's important for you to sort of understand that. Listen, this is nice. The meeting inspired you to refocus on transitioning to a new concept. That's wonderful. I do want to echo what Nicole said about the Chase consultants. One of the reasons that we're really spending a lot of time collaborating with one another is because through this program, through Chase Advancing Black Entrepreneurs, you can meet with a consultant. You can get a free hours consultation with a consultant that can really help you get on the right track. And all of these questions that you might not want to ask in a forum like this, you can ask them individually. And so we'll we always send out a follow-up email to this work. We will include that link. We encourage you to please sign up. It is free. There's no obligation. You don't have to be a customer, none of those things. But we have business consultants like Nicole, who it is their life's work to make sure that you get the kind of information you need to make the kinds of steps and moves that you that are going to really help you be successful. So please, please, please use those resources. A couple of things before we go. Thank you for attending. Thank you, Nicole. As always, I appreciate you taking time with us today and working through these concepts, which can be a little difficult, but we've tried to make them as simple as possible. And that's what we want. We want you to understand how simple we can make it. We don't have to overthink it. We can just use these tools. You don't have to go find anything. Use what we're giving you, and it'll help you tremendously in what you're doing. Finally, please visit usblackchambers.org/webinars for our latest webinars coming up. For those of you who've registered for this event, we will put it back out, but we will keep you in the loop and reminding you that September 27th is the next day that we're going to do this webinar, which will be part 2. And it'll be really exciting as well. We have our Buy Black conference coming up. So if you go to byblackcon.com, that's the Buy Black Conference, but CON.com. Please join us in October. We would love to see you at National Harbor. And we also have a directory called Buy Black. And so it costs you nothing to register your business in Buy Black so that more companies, businesses, consumers can see you, as well as becoming certified. We are the only entity that offers a certification for Black-owned business solely, not a minority certification, but a Black-owned certification. And we have a lot of corporate partners who are joining us in that effort. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.